was going to happen anyway. Why delay the inevitable? On Wednesday, it was National Signing Day for college football. Used to be that teams had to wait until February to complete their classes. I mean, they technically, completing the classes is still what happens in February. But the early signing period in December has become the main day to pay attention to. I thought when I was watching the Big Ten Network, their crew said it best. The February signing day has really become more about the transfer portal and updates to the transfer classes. 24/7 Sports top 10 high school classes. Number 1, Texas A&M. Number 2, Alabama. Georgia 3, Ohio State 4, Texas 5, Penn State 6, Notre Dame 7, Oklahoma 8, Michigan 9, and North Carolina, surprisingly, 10. I think it's interesting North Carolina got in so high, especially when you look at their rankings. They're above teams like Clemson, LSU, Auburn, and then in the SEC, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee are also above Auburn right now, and are doing really well, placing in the middle teens. Obviously, recruiting's a lot like the draft. There's hit or miss. You can be wrong on certain players, but it's always good to have high ratings. A couple notable commitments on the February signing day. 5-star linebacker Harold Perkins has flipped from Texas A&M to LSU, and coveted transfer quarterback Caleb Williams picked to USC over Wisconsin is reunited with his former Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley. USC has the top transfer class according to 24/7. Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, Florida State, Arkansas, South Carolina, Texas, TCU, and Michigan State round out the top 10 there. In college basketball, we'll first hit up the AP poll. How about that? Auburn and Gonzaga stay at 1 and 2. UCLA jumps up to number 3. Kentucky jumps up 7 spots to number 5. Illinois is up 6 spots to number 18. The big fallers, Baylor and Arizona lost games. They fall 4 spots, but are still in the top 10. Kansas dropped 5 spots, but is still in the top 10 at number 10. Michigan State, after the loss on the road to Illinois, down 3 spots to 13. USC is down 4 spots to 19, and the big faller was LSU's down 6 spots from 19 to 25. Davidson dropped out after suffering a loss. Texas is back in. ESPN bracketology with Joe Lunardi. Auburn stays as the number 1 seed. The first team out is West Virginia. The last team in is Wyoming. The last 4 teams to get byes and not play in the first 4 are Loyola Chicago, Seton Hall, UNC, that's North Carolina, and San Francisco. The last 4 in who would be playing in the first 4, San Diego State, Florida, Creighton, Wyoming. The first 4 out, West Virginia, Oregon, Mississippi State, Florida State. Next 4 out, Notre Dame, UAB, SMU, VCU. The Big 10, Big 12, Big East, and SEC all have 7 teams in the projected field according to ESPN, whereas the rest of the conferences have no more than 4. CBS, Jerry Palm hasn't projected the entire field, at least on the articles I was able to find, but he has Auburn number 1 overall, and the other number 1 seeds are Gonzaga, Baylor, and Wisconsin, which that surprises me. I don't think anybody else is projecting Wisconsin as a number 1 right now. I think they're pretty solid number 2. I don't see them jumping up. I see them as a 2 or a 3. Purdue, UCLA, Providence, and Kansas are his number 2s. And that's all that was really available for that. The NBA announced the rosters for the upcoming All-Star game yesterday. The starters for the West are LeBron, Andrew Wiggins, Nikola Jokic, John Morant, and Steph Curry. No real surprises there, except it's surprising that Wiggins is a starter. The bench for the West is Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Draymond Green, Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Donovan Mitchell. No huge surprises there either. The East, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, DeMar DeRozan, and Trae Young are your starters. Good for DeRozan, man. I didn't think that trade to Chicago was going to work out, but it's worked great for the Bulls. They're having a good year, and DeRozan is a starter in the All-Star game, and his teammate Zach LaVine is one of the East reserves and bench players. Jason Tatum from the Celtics, Chris Middleton from the Bucks, James Harden obviously from the Nets, Jimmy Butler from the Heat, Fred VanVleet from the Toronto Raptors, and Darius Garland, the young point guard from the Cleveland Cavaliers, are the rest of your East bench players. Guys that have been mentioned amongst snubs. LaMelo Ball's having a pretty good year in Charlotte, so is Miles Bridges, and dude's a human highlight reel constantly on the top 10 plays on SportsCenter. 19.9 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game, pretty good year. DeJounte Murray, the guard for the San Antonio Spurs, 19.6 points per game. You can certainly make an argument for him. Jaren Jackson Jr. in Memphis and the way he plays, foundational piece that he is for one of the promising young teams in the league, deserve at least a little more consideration. I don't really have his numbers in front of me right now. But he is a future All-Star, absolutely. Jarrett Allen for the center for the Cavaliers. One of the reasons that team is doing so well right now. Career year, averaging a double-double. Like I said, big part of his success. Fantastic defender so far this year. Maybe the evaluation of big guys is changing a little bit, and that's why he hasn't gotten in. But he has had an impressive year and deserves consideration. Drew Holiday, the guard for the Bucks, great defender, but obviously defense isn't going to get you an all-star spot anymore, on defense alone, that is. But he does score 18 points per game on top of it. The Bucks are a team that don't really need him to be a major scoring threat, but he still is, and the part of the argument you could conceivably make for him. Also, with the NBA, the trade deadline is next Thursday, February 10th, so we will talk about that on next week's show, talk about the trades that went down. And we'll also cover the Super Bowl and probably more MLB stuff, and we'll see what else comes up. But that's all for this edition of the Travis on Sports podcast. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and follow and keep up with the show on the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels we've set up and the pages we set up. Thank you again for listening. And like I mentioned, I will be back with a new episode of the show next week.